What I found most surprising when diving into these documents was the terrifying irony of it all. You have Aaron Goodwin, a man who, built his entire career confronting manufactured horror, facing down ghosts for a living.
Right. He's the guy they send in first.
Exactly. And his greatest threat, the thing that nearly undid him, it didn't come from a crumbling asylum. It came from right there in his own living room.
It really is the ultimate betrayal wrapped in this perfect professional context. For nearly 2 decades, I mean, we're talking 29 seasons of Ghost Adventures, Aaron Goodwin has specialized in being vulnerable.
He's the cameraman, the investigator.
And often literally the bait for the spirits. He's the first one into the dark room, the one asking the provocative questions. He has confronted every flavor of paranormal entity you can possibly imagine.
But the greatest, most devastating threat to his actual existence didn't come from a phantom or a poltergeist. It came from the person he vowed to spend his life with. The woman who shared his home, his life. Victoria Goodwin.
So today, we are taking a necessary deep dive into a case of betrayal so profound, it just exposes the shocking vulnerability behind a high-profile life. We've compiled sources detailing the complete collapse of their marriage, the meticulously planned murder-for-hire plot she orchestrated with a convicted killer, and, the extraordinary emotional and legal fallout that followed.
Our mission here is to analyze this timeline thoroughly. We'll go from the initial fairy tale romance to that chilling decision to, quote, end his existence. And then, and this is crucial, we'll compare his close call to a tragically similar case where fate did not intervene.
It's the only way to get the essential context, to understand just how close Aaron Goodwin came to an absolute irreversible end.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Aaron's public identity is massive, right? It's all built on confronting the unknown.
Absolutely. And that commitment meant constant travel, intense production schedules, and a high degree of celebrity. It's a life lived perpetually in the public eye, even when he's literally in the dark.
And that intensity, as we're about to see, is what created the isolated, private vulnerability that his wife would eventually exploit.
Let's start with that relationship foundation and the 2 central characters in this.
Well,
This deeply unsettling story. On one side, you have Aaron Goodwin. He is successful, famous, and by all accounts, deeply dedicated to a niche but immensely popular television career.
he's not just a TV personality, he's a brand. The sources estimate his wealth, which comes from the long-running success of Ghost Adventures, and his apparel line, Big Steppin', is somewhere around $1.5 million.
So he had financial security, high visibility. But that visibility required immense physical and emotional commitment away from home.
And then you have Victoria Goodwin. Publicly, she presented a very appealing image. The sources describe her as tall, beautiful, and possessing a seemingly gentle, approachable personality.
She had her own interests, like amateur golf, and a history of sharing very personal, sometimes raw details of her life on social media. She talked about, fighting STDs and her ongoing search for inner peace and spiritual fulfillment.
So they meet in 2018, and what follows is, it's a whirlwind. It wasn't a slow burn at all. It was a fast, intense romance that, on the surface, projected a very conventional image of happiness.
The early milestones are textbook romance, which really just makes the later events all the more jarring. They got engaged in front of the iconic Disneyland castle.
I mean, you can't get more fairy tale than that. A setting that's synonymous with idealized eternal love. They were projecting an image of conventional perfection to their fans and followers.
But the wedding itself, wow, that provided an unexpected layer of symbolic foreshadowing. After several pandemic-related delays, they finally got married in August 2022. And the venue.
Inside Disneyland's Haunted Mansion.
Exactly. I mean, if you just pause on that detail for a moment, getting married inside a monument to spooky, elaborate illusions and staged terror, the irony in hindsight is just immense.
At the time, friends were celebrating it as this perfectly thematic union, a match made in heaven for a paranormal investigator. But in less than 2 years, that metaphor would turn brutally real.
The sources suggest that pretty soon after the celebratory dust settled, the inherent demands of Aaron's profession began to chip away at the foundation of their marriage.
His career momentum was just relentless.
Right. Maintaining a show like Ghost Adventures requires constant travel, often overseas, and long, grueling filming schedules. It meant Aaron was just seldom home.
And this created a significant professional distance between them. Victoria was left alone, isolated in their Las Vegas home. That sense of neglect and isolation is consistently cited by the sources as the emotional void that led to her internal dissatisfaction.
It's the paradox of a celebrity partnership, isn't it? The very success that brings financial stability also demands the absence that can destroy emotional stability. She was married to a star who was only physically present sporadically.
And that loneliness, that lack of fulfillment, it festered. It created an environment where a much, much darker obsession could take root.
It's such a profound shift. The man who publicly risks his well-being to entertain millions unknowingly creates the very conditions in his private life that put him at lethal risk. The stage was set not for a divorce, but for something far more drastic.
Okay, so how does a lonely wife married to a celebrity go from feeling isolated to actively plotting a murder?
The answer, as the sources reveal, lies in a disturbingly specific trajectory. An obsession with true crime that crossed the line from, a passive interest to active collaboration.
She didn't pursue traditional therapy or standard legal separation. Instead, she turned to the darkest corners of human experience, eventually fixating on true crime content, and specifically on one highly notorious incarcerated individual.
That individual was Grant Amato. He's a convicted triple murderer serving 3 consecutive life sentences in a Florida prison. And it is vital to understand Amato's background to see why he was the perfect catalyst for Victoria's dark turn.
Okay, so tell us about him.
Amato was a Florida native, unemployed, and deeply immersed in the world of competitive online gaming. His family was supporting him, but his life was consumed by this destructive fixation on an online streamer.
And the sources detail how he stole or defrauded over $200,000.
Largely his family's money.
Right, all in a desperate, futile attempt to gain the streamer's attention. When his father finally discovered the theft and gave him a clear ultimatum: leave the family home, get help, Amato responded with just unfathomable violence in 2018.
He murdered his mother, his father, and his brother. Then he staged the scene to look like a botched robbery. He was quickly arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in August 2019.
So this made him a figure of infamy. His case was widely covered in documentaries, including one called Ritual plus Alt plus Desire.
And it was this notoriety that drew Victoria in. She reached out to him, initiating a classic pen-pal relationship with a man convicted of mass family murder. This particular fixation, this romantic or sexual attraction to those who commit horrific crimes, it has a well-documented psychological label: hyperstophilia.
Really should pause on that, on hyperstophilia, because it explains the core mechanism driving not just this case, but the parallel case we'll examine later. It's not a casual interest in a criminal.
No, it's an attraction rooted in the celebrity or the power derived from their crime. For someone like Victoria, who is feeling isolated and maybe powerless in her own life, connecting with a man who exerted ultimate destructive power might have provided a perverse sense of connection or excitement.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense.
Exactly. The sources suggest she was seeking connection, and she found it in the most extreme way possible. The relationship deepened quickly through written correspondence, morphing from simple pen pal letters into a full-blown romantic connection.
So they were exchanging declarations of love and intimacy, all filtered through the slow mechanism of prison mail.
But the relationship and the potential for crime was dramatically accelerated by a critical breach of prison security. Grant Amato, despite being confined for life, somehow acquired a contraband cell phone while inside.
And that changes everything.
Everything. Their communication immediately shifted from slow, monitored letters to instant, uncensored, and highly private text messages. This allowed the relationship to transition from fantasy to immediate criminal planning.
They were no longer just expressing mutual love.
No, they were actively plotting the elimination of the obstacle: Aaron Goodwin.
It creates this completely surreal contrast. Aaron is out investigating a ghost in some desolate location, relying on high-tech gear to capture evidence of the dead.
And meanwhile, his wife is using illegal contraband technology to plot his actual physical death with a triple murderer she met through the internet. That digital access made the fantasy lethal.
So as this textual relationship flourished, Victoria's focus it irrevocably shifted.
She went from merely contemplating divorce to planning an act of violence that was absolute.
And the motive, it seems complex, but the source material points heavily toward 2 driving factors.
Right. First, a desperate desire for immediate freedom to pursue her new relationship with Amato. And second, the clear financial incentive represented by Aaron's estimated $1.5 million wealth, including his brand.
So it looks like she wanted a clean break that was both permanent and financially profitable.
And her intentions were laid bare in the most definitive way possible through a chilling text message that investigators recovered later. She sent a text to Amato asking, "Am I a bad person? Because I chose to end his existence, not divorce."
Let's just sit with that line for a moment. End his existence, not divorce. It's not just rhetoric, it's an active choice, a clear rejection of the legal pathway.
Exactly. She didn't want the messy, potentially costly dissolution of assets that a divorce requires. She wanted destruction. That single recovered text is the entire thesis of her crime.
And once that intent was established, Grant Amato immediately offered to facilitate.
He boasted that he could connect her with a hitman, which he described vaguely as a desperate man willing to take on the contract kill. This suggests, maybe a pre-existing network or just the bravado of a desperate inmate.
The financial logistics were meticulously detailed in their messages. Victoria agreed to a price of $11,515 for the murder,
with an immediate upfront payment of $2,500 required to set the plan in motion. The precision of that price, $11,515, it suggests a calculated negotiation had already taken place.
But what transforms this vague plot into a tangible, imminent threat is the sheer unsettling level of operational detail Victoria provided. This was not a poorly thought-out scheme.
Not at all. It was a highly actionable assassination plan rooted in exploiting Aaron's professional life. She's supplied Amato with a chilling information package intended for the hitman.
This included Aaron's current schedule, detailing when he would be traveling and where. Specifically, she provided the location of his hotel and the exact filming location in California for ghost adventures,
which was critical for targeting him away from their shared home base in Nevada.
She sent his car license plate number and a clear photograph of Aaron for identification. And then there's the final, intimate detail that reveals the depth of her betrayal.
She provided the hitman with the password for Aaron's shared location information.
She was literally handing the killer the key to his life, giving him real-time GPS coordinates. She knew exactly where he would be and how to track him, turning his own safety settings into a lethal vulnerability.
So the entire plot was fully refined and ready for the final command in October 2024. The hit was imminent. But here's the critical turning point. The moment of fate that saved Aaron Goodwin's life, which had absolutely nothing to do with him or his crew discovering the plot.
It was entirely circumstantial.
Completely. Just before Amato could successfully contact the outside hitman and give the final order and potentially receive that $2,500 payment, prison officers conducted an unexpected surprise raid on Amato's cell.
And they seized the contraband cell phone.
That's it. That action, just a simple enforcement of prison rules aimed at stopping minor infractions, it instantly severed the communication line between Amato, Victoria, and the alleged outside contact. The murder plot collapsed, not because of remorse or discovery, but because of a routine procedural sweep.
Aaron Goodwin's life was saved by an institutional search warrant.
So the plot was foiled in October 2024, but Victoria was completely unaware that the physical evidence of her crime, the phone, was now in the hands of authorities. For months, she was sitting on a massive, lethal secret she believed was safe.
And this led to a truly bizarre and disturbing interlude of just normalcy. During this period, she actively worked to maintain the facade of a loving, attentive wife.
It's incredible. The sources reveal she was sharing photos of herself and Aaron celebrating Valentine's Day together, complete with sweet messages and even photos of them building innocent things like Legos.
She was projecting this perfect, cozy, domestic life, all while the complete blueprint for her husband's assassination was locked away in a Florida evidence room.
That juxtaposition celebrating Valentine's Day, building Legos, while knowing you've commissioned a triple murderer to find a killer. It speaks to an almost unimaginable level of psychological compartmentalization and duplicity.
She was sustaining an illusion of trust that was just breathtakingly false.
But that illusion shattered in March 2025.
Yeah.
During a long or perhaps delayed review of the seized contraband, prison officials finally sifted through the extensive month-long text history between Amato and Victoria.
And when the full depth of the murder-for-hire conspiracy was revealed, law enforcement was immediately notified in both Florida and Nevada.
Now, let's talk about where Aaron was when his reality just exploded. At the precise moment police were moving to arrest Victoria, Aaron and the Ghost Adventures crew were deep into filming a major investigation for an episode titled Hollydale Asylum of Hell.
They were locked down inside the abandoned Hollydale Mental Hospital in Downey, California. I mean, this is an environment specifically designed to be dark, isolated, physically and emotionally challenging.
It's the kind of place where Aaron expects to confront genuine, visceral terror and psychological anguish as part of his job.
And the footage, which was later teased in a preview clip, captures the sheer, profound shock of the moment. Aaron is setting up equipment, focused entirely on the manufactured darkness of the asylum when his phone lights up with a critical notification.
You can actually see him stop, telling a colleague, "Hold on one second," as he steps away to look at the screen. The atmosphere of the asylum is dark, tense, and focused on finding a supernatural threat.
And Aaron's voice, when he speaks, is just a jarring break from that professional tone. He turns to the crew member and says, "Bro, the police are at my house. I gotta go outside."
He literally rushes out of the physical darkness of the abandoned mental hospital and into the very real human darkness of his private life.
The police were physically present at his Las Vegas home, waiting to speak with him. The sources confirm it was a FaceTime call.
Which is perhaps the most immediate and intimate way to receive such devastating news. They told him Victoria had been arrested in Clark County, Nevada, for conspiracy to commit murder and soliciting murder.
The show, and you have to respect them for this, they limited the footage of the actual conversation out of respect for Aaron, but the emotional impact on that set was catastrophic.
Aaron later stated publicly that he refuses to watch that episode. He admitted he couldn't bear to relive that night again and called the situation insane and disturbing.
He's a person who walks into literal danger for a living, and yet the real terror, the one that truly broke him, was the one that followed him home.
The legal response to Victoria's plot was swift and decisive. She was arrested in March 2025. And, given the overwhelming textual evidence recovered from that contraband phone detailing the conspiracy, she quickly pursued a plea deal with prosecutors in Clark County.
By April, she pled guilty to one felony count of conspiracy to commit murder.
And, crucially, as part of that agreement, the more severe charge of solicitation of murder was dropped. The speed in securing a plea really just reflects the strength of the evidence held by the state.
She was sentenced 2 months later, in June 2025, to 36 to 90 months. That means a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 7.5 years in Nevada State Prison.
Which, it reflects the seriousness of the conspiracy, acknowledging the intent to kill while granting some leniency because the plot wasn't carried out.
During her sentencing, Victoria offered a public, tearful apology to Aaron. She stated she was immensely sorry for the pain and anxiety she caused and expressed profound betrayal, claiming she was consumed with regret.
And she promised to bow out of your life forever.
But the sources reveal a deep contradiction here that makes assessing the sincerity of that apology extremely difficult. Just after promising to bow out forever, she responded to Aaron's divorce filing, claiming she still believes they could reconcile their marriage.
How is that possible? It's a classic example of manipulative or just highly confused emotional behavior. How can someone genuinely express remorse for planning an execution and then 6 weeks later suggest that the marriage they tried to end violently is somehow salvageable?
It strongly suggests her courtroom apology might have been calculated for sentencing rather than true reflection.
Aaron's reaction to the entire ordeal was immediate and final. He filed for divorce just 6 days after the arrest. Initially, he cited standard grounds, incompatible views, tastes, likes and dislikes, making marital harmony impossible.
But the trauma quickly expanded beyond mere incompatibility. Aaron later amended his divorce filing to include a full civil lawsuit against Victoria.
So this wasn't just about dissolving the marriage. It was about acknowledging the deep psychological and legal damage she inflicted, suing her for assault, false imprisonment, and negligence.
In his victim impact statement, it provided the most raw and heartbreaking insight into his state of mind. For 7 years, he genuinely believed he was living in a loving relationship with his best friend, someone he trusted completely.
Someone who was meant to be his eternal partner, symbolized by that haunted mansion wedding.
Now, he describes his life as being defined by extreme psychological damage. He faces daily fear, a complete inability to trust anyone anymore, and he told the court that he cries every single day. He stated emphatically that he will never forgive Victoria.
It's the ultimate psychological warfare. He is paid to enter situations where he has to confront fear, but now he's living in a reality where the fear is real, it's pervasive, and it was inflicted by the one person he depended on for safety.
The sources also revealed her other infidelities, sleeping with multiple men besides Amato, which just intensified that feeling of profound, multi-layered betrayal. He lamented that they were something very special, and so did everyone else, which shows the collapse of his public and private self-image.
And Aaron has been clear with the public that he's actively declining press interviews. He stated honestly that he's not doing good at all, and that every day is worse with all I'm learning all the time.
He admitted he probably couldn't make it through an interview without being in tears. His singular focus now is just finalizing the divorce so he can begin the process of moving on.
The public support, however, has been overwhelming. Fans have really rallied around him, applauding his bravery, offering support with messages like, "You owe us nothing, brother," and acknowledging his honesty. It's an external wave of compassion that's likely a necessary shield against the private hell he is experiencing.
And what about the third party, the catalyst and collaborator, Grant Amato?
He's already serving 3 consecutive life sentences for triple murder. The sources confirmed no new charges were filed against him related to the conspiracy against Aaron Goodwin, as there is simply no further meaningful penalty the legal system can impose on him.
Aaron Goodwin's survival hinged entirely on a correctional officer in Florida deciding to seize a contraband phone. This twist of fate is unique, but the methods, the motive, and the psychological mechanism hyperstophilia are not.
Absolutely. To truly appreciate the terror of Aaron's close call, we have to look at a case that is a dark mirror image where the plot succeeded years earlier.
We're talking about the 2001 murder of Robert Fingerhut,
Which was engineered by his ex-wife, Dana Roberts, using an identical blueprint, a secret relationship with an incarcerated killer. The parallels are not just similar, they are genuinely frightening in their precision.
So the story begins October 11, 2001, in Ohio. Dana Roberts, who was 57, called the police, claiming she had returned from shopping only to find her ex-husband, Robert Fingerhut, dead in their kitchen.
Robert had been shot twice. One bullet struck his chest. The other entered through his right hand, a classic defense wound, suggesting he raised his hands, maybe holding his own weapon or trying to shield himself, and then fatally passed into his head.
Police noted his safe was open, his gun was missing, and his car had been stolen, all suggesting a robbery gone wrong.
But the initial investigation quickly broke that robbery illusion. Robert's stolen car was recovered the next day, and forensics found blood belonging to both the victim and a man named Nathaniel Jackson. Jackson, then 30, had only been released from prison 2 days prior after serving time for robbery.
So initially, detectives suspected the clean, simple narrative. An ex-con, a botched robbery.
But the theory completely collapsed when police examined Nathaniel Jackson's phone records. In the 24 hours before the murder, Jackson had communicated with one number over 20 times.
And that number belonged to Dana Roberts, the victim's ex-wife.
Exactly. The investigation immediately shifted from robbery to conspiracy. When police searched Dana's property, they found the smoking gun, 200 love letters hidden away in her trunk, exchanged between Dana and Nathaniel while he was incarcerated.
Dana had initially met Jackson through a church outreach program designed for the rehabilitation of inmates. What started as spiritual encouragement swiftly transitioned into a secret romantic affair, promising Nathaniel life and money upon his release.
And just like Victoria Goodwin, Dana Roberts' motive was this potent and toxic blend of financial security and a desire for absolute freedom. Dana and Robert had technically divorced, but they continued living together and running several successful businesses.
A car rental company, 2 bus stations, and a fast food joint. Robert was the primary owner.
Dana feared that a true, clean separation would mean losing her stake in those valuable businesses. Furthermore, Robert held a substantial life insurance policy worth $550,000, which Dana stood to inherit.
So she saw Nathaniel Jackson as the means to achieve financial freedom and romantic fulfillment simultaneously, without the mess of court proceedings.
And their communication about the plot was heavily encrypted through coded language in their letters, acknowledging the monitoring that might occur. They never used Robert's name, instead referring to him ominously as the trouble, the obstacle, or simply that man.
Dana signaled her readiness using these chillingly veiled phrases. She would write, "The door will be open like my heart," to confirm that Nathaniel would have physical access to the house.
And Nathaniel would promise, "You won't have to worry about the trouble anymore," confirming the lethal agreement.
So the plan was executed on December 10th, 2001. Dana picked Jackson up after his release, spent the night with him, and the next day purchased supplies, gloves, garbage bags, and bleach, and left the back door unlocked under the pretext of running errands.
Jackson snuck into the house, but Robert, alerted by suspicion or maybe the sound of the intruder, went to his safe, retrieved his own gun, and confronted Jackson in the kitchen.
Robert Fingerhut fired the first shot, grazing Nathaniel Jackson. But Jackson managed to overpower him, wrestling the gun away and fulfilling the contract by shooting Robert multiple times. Jackson then panicked, stole Robert's car, and fled.
The outcome was definitive and devastating. Both Dana Roberts and Nathaniel Jackson were convicted of aggravated murder and sentenced to death. This stands in stark contrast to Victoria Goodwin's 3-year minimum sentence.
And although there have been subsequent legal shifts, Nathaniel's death penalty was overturned in May 2025 and reduced to life. Dana, now 81, is still appealing but is expected to die in prison.
The consequences for Dana Roberts were the ultimate irreversible loss of freedom and life. This comparison is essential because it is a dark mirror image of the Goodwin case. Dana and Victoria both leveraged the specific perverse dynamic of hybristophilia, using the promise of love and a small amount of money to hire someone willing to commit lethal violence.
The only difference between Aaron Goodwin and Robert Fingerhut was the timing of a simple prison contraband raid.
When you synthesize these two narratives, Aaron Goodwin's terrifying close call and Robert Fingerhut's tragic end, the underlying themes are just undeniably connected. You have the destructive power of infidelity combined with a specific financial motive, and this bizarrely persistent phenomenon of relationships developed with incarcerated criminals.
Aaron Goodwin's life was spared by a completely random administrative action, the seizure of a contraband phone, a moment of fate totally outside his control or even his awareness.
Victoria Goodwin's detailed plot was, in its intent and its methodology, identical to Dana Roberts's. Only the failure of the technology prevented the execution.
This entire story, pulled from the sources, it highlights the immense psychological devastation that occurs when the person you trust to share your life suddenly plans to end it, leveraging your greatest vulnerabilities against you, your travel schedule, your location, your professional dedication.
And the sources show both Victoria Goodwin and Dana Roberts sought to, quote, end existence, not divorce. This raises an important final question for you to consider. What does it say about the human condition when the desire for freedom or financial gain becomes so overwhelmingly powerful that it completely eclipses the simple, legal, and non-violent path of separation?
What compels someone to collaborate with a convicted murderer?
Yeah.
This story reveals the thin, terrifying line between a high-profile, seemingly normal life and absolute, irreversible betrayal. And the fact that for Aaron Goodwin, that line was only held by a confiscated cell phone.